Welcome to your Barbados Today evening news update for Thursday, September 17th. A transitional team will handle all matters relating to Barbados becoming a republic. Prime Minister Mia Mottley made the disclosure on the historic shift set to take place within the next 14 months during an interview with ABC Australia's Chief Foreign Correspondent Philip Williams. Prime Minister Mottley said her government will use suggestions from the team as well as recommendations from the previous Constitutional Review Commission, which was led by Sir Henry Ford.
We have to go through a whole transition team and settle on the arrangements. Fortunately, a lot of that work was done many years ago, and the Constitutional Review Commission had submitted to the then government proposals for how the president should be elected. We're going to dust that off, and in the context of the transition team that will be appointed, we will take recommendations as to how best we do it, whether we accept those recommendations from Sir Henry Ford when we had the Constitutional Review Commission in the 1990s, or whether we modify it. I think we don't want, Prime Minister will remain the head of government in our system, and that we've pretty much decided, so that the President will have a little more than ceremonial functions, but akin to more what we have now. The matters pertaining to certain appeals, the Chairman of the Privy Council in terms of the exercise of the prerogative of mercy is the Governor-General. There are certain things that will be vested in the President as they are in the Governor-General, and some of her own deliberate judgment, some where she must take advice from the constitutional posts in the country, be it the Prime Minister and Leader of the Opposition. So we'll work out those transitional arrangements. Fortunately for us, we've had two major Constitutional Review Commissions since becoming independent, and a lot of that work will not necessarily change now. But out of an abundance of caution, we need to review it and ensure that it is as valid in the third decade of the 21st century as it was when they settled that 30 years and 50 years ago, respectively.
The Prime Minister confirmed that government had not yet spoken directly to Buckingham Palace, but said she believed the British people would support Barbados.
It's not a divisive decision. It's not a decision that is reflective of any break with the monarchy or any disrespect. In fact, it's quite the opposite. We have an excellent relationship with the United Kingdom, with the royal family, and we believe that the time has just come for us to boost the confidence of our people. We don't receive any aid, we don't receive any funding that is out of the ordinary on our own. We don't receive any of those things. So that pretty much there's no reason for us not to go to the point where a Barbadian can be the head of state of our own country. And I would imagine that Australia and other countries would want similarly that kind of discussion to take place in their own countries.
Members of the Barbados Secondary Teachers Union still have several concerns they want addressed before the start of the new school term on Monday. Following an over 3-hour-long meeting on Zoom with its membership on Wednesday night to discuss matters related to the reopening of schools, BSTU President Mary Redmond said teachers had aired numerous grievances. One of their main concerns, she said, related to a common set of protocols being implemented at all schools.
Coming out of that meeting, we learned that some schools were further along in their planning and organization than others. There was a call for protocols. They had protocols to be available at all schools because planning in the absence of these protocols is causing some disparity and confusion as to what should obtain. Different schools are doing different things, they're applying different standards, and it is a cause for concern among the membership. Concerns have been expressed too about the ability to complete curricula, especially CXC's syllabus requirements. Concerns were expressed about the ability to complete SBAs. And in relation to CXC more specifically, there were concerns expressed within a context that teachers must work with a plan in mind.
Redmond said members also called for shortened school hours so as to reduce the chances of students having to use public transportation with members of the public during peak hours.
Grave reservations were expressed in relation to students using the public transport system and the opportunities that we envisage will be presented for commingling of students with the working public, and of course the implications of that. There is a call for shortened school day to allow children to effectively be off the streets when the working public will be using the public transportation system. Concerns were also raised in relation to Wi-Fi availability and consistency of service within the schools. The teachers have queried the readiness of the school's internet facilities to support the requirements that are necessary for the online classes, which will now be held within the school and not from at home.
Residents of a Christchurch community are breathing a sigh of relief after the Sanitation Service Authority moved in to clean up garbage hoarded by one of their neighbors. The Maxwell Hill Road resident, who reportedly suffers from a mental illness, had been collecting garbage in the early hours of the morning and piling it near her home for almost 3 years. Residents complained that the mountain of debris and garbage had been attracting rodents and other pests.
What you're witnessing is operations after a number of consultations between the Ministry of Health, the constituency offices of QC MP Ralph Thorne, Member of Parliament Adrian Ford, who at this time is also Minister of Environment and National Beautification. We came upon this story after community activist Adrian Donovan would have highlighted it, where a lady during the early mornings would be removing waste from persons' bins and other areas and bringing them here. What she actually created were like more or less 3 big mountains. On the positive side, she has it separated so it's easy for the SSA to move. On the negative side, it's really a bad practice and one that we would not want to encourage anyone to do. And we are making the appeal to the Ministry of Health and others to get help for her. And the Minister Ford and QC Thorne is working assiduously on that part of it. From the perspective of the SSA, we have right now a bobcat and we have 3 trucks ferrying this waste to our landfill.
There's regional and international news after this short break.
Barbados Today, news you can trust.
To news from our regional neighbors now, Guyana police have identified the body of a man found in the wreckage of a plane earlier this week. In addition to the body, the aircraft also had a quantity of cocaine. Police say they have established a link between that aircraft and another that crash-landed on Sunday night.
With cooperation from neighboring Brazil and Interpol, local investigators have been able to identify the man who was found dead in that crash drug-laden plane on Monday. He has been identified as 49-year-old Brazilian national Alessandro Eduardo Petrivius. The man's body was flown to Georgetown from the scene of the accident, and a post-mortem examination is to be conducted. He was the only person found in the plane that crashed with over 850 pounds of cocaine as its cargo. The other man who authorities believe was the pilot of the same drug plane has also been identified as a Brazilian national, with known links to the South American narcotics world. He was arrested with 2 other men after they were spotted with another small foreign plane at 9 miles of Sano in Region 7. He was the only person found with injuries. Sources close to the investigations told News Source today that the injured pilot had served time in Brazil previously on narcotics charges. It is believed that after the plane crashed with a cocaine cargo, he made contact with the other two men in a rescue effort to move the cargo. The second plane was found with medical supplies and other pieces of equipment.
And on the international scene, the World Health Organization has released a health worker safety charter calling on governments and healthcare leaders to take action to better protect healthcare workers and patients. The plea came as the organization observed World Patient Safety Day.
One of the keys to keeping patients safe is keeping health workers safe. The COVID-19 pandemic has reminded all of us of the vital role health workers play to relieve suffering and save lives. We all owe health workers an enormous debt, not just because they have cared for the sick, but because they risk their own lives in the line of duty. Globally, around 14% of COVID-19 cases reported to WHO are among health workers, and in some countries it's as much as 35%. Although data are limited and it's hard to know whether health workers are infected in their workplaces or communities. It's not just the risk of infection. Every day, health workers are exposed to stress, burnout, stigma, discrimination, and even violence.
That's news. But for the very latest, visit us at www.barbadostoday.bb. You can also subscribe to our e-paper, email updates, or like us on Facebook, and sign up for our breaking news alerts via WhatsApp. We're also on Izumi Media in bus terminals, as well as screenplay at supermarkets and gas stations near you. And you can also hear us on Mix 96.9 FM and Capital Media HD 99.3 FM.